Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode at the Warehouse Underground podcast series. This is episode 8. I have a very cool guest for you today on the show. His name's Jerry Abiog. He is the CEO and co-founder at Standard Insights. And so they are using machine learning and artificial intelligence to help predict customer behavior, buying behavior, so that operations can level set and optimize their inventory. Now, I've heard some people in the warehousing world say before, I don't care what happens over there. I'm running inside the four walls, not that concerned about what happens outside the four walls, but you should be, because if you're trying to hit the metrics of lowering your cost per unit ship, if you're spending all of your labor receiving and unloading and you're not shipping it, that's going to hurt your metric. If you run a facility that is at capacity, also can be very challenging too. So I'm excited to have him on the show today because there's a lot of cool things that are happening out there that you can be aware of that can really help operations right size and optimize that inventory. And he is the perfect guest to talk about that. So with that, I will bring him up onto the stage. Hey, Jerry, welcome to the Warehouse Underground, man. Thanks for coming on. And how are you?
Hey, Ben. Hey, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Cool. Yeah. So we have chatted before.
Yeah.
We did a little bit of an exploratory call and we're like, hey, is there alignment here? Is there some similarities between ops side and kind of what I do? And I think we both walked away thinking that, yeah, there absolutely is. So,
but before we before the podcast.
Yes. And I always say, like, I should just record those calls that I have with people and just publish those because they're always really good. But before we get into that, though, just tell the audience a little bit about your background, your story, and kind of what led you here today with Standard Insights.
Yeah, sure. So going back about 10, 12 years ago, I left the corporate world and went on my own and opened up my own business, helping software companies with sales and marketing initiatives. So this was going back to 2012. Along the way, we've had some good clients. And one of the clients that I've had, this was back in the mid 2010s, was my first foray into AI and machine learning. So I worked for this startup. That startup failed. But I saw something that was going on behind the scenes that, hey, this could be something big down the road. So as this startup was imploding, through serendipitous events, I met my future co-founders. They were visiting from India. They used to live in Atlanta. We met through mutual friends. And this guy had approached me with this idea of being able to leverage a client or a business's first-party data to help them give a competitive advantage. So I took that knowledge, what I had from the prior startup. I took this idea of this prototype we had and flew from Atlanta to Denver for the outdoor retail show, kind of cold calling from booth to booth to booth. This was 2017, 2018, before AI was even a household name, and kind of explaining to them, what we did. And then on the way back to Atlanta, by the time I got back to Atlanta, had 2 beta clients who gave us their data. And that's where kind of everything started. However, there was a lot of bumps along the road. We're all self-funded, but it wasn't until the aftermath of COVID and some businesses beginning to realize that, hey, we need to do something to become more efficient. Starting off, with our data, that was number one. And then number two, when ChatGPT came to fruition, we're looking at 2.5 years ago. Yeah. That's when AI became mainstream. So that's how we all kind of started.
Yeah. I mean, I hear that all the time. It's like COVID was that fork in the road that changed the trajectory of lots of businesses out there. So, but let me ask you this. I mean, just going straight to the Standard Insights website, it's all about data and leveraging that data, right? So that you're predicting the customer buying habits, and you are getting the analytics to do that. But is that a fair statement for what the company
absolutely
does?
In fact, I'm going to show you this. So I gave a talk.
It's a prop.
Yeah, it's a prop, right? To get you to wake up the audience. So I gave a talk in the Bahamas on AI and supply chain in December. And so That's
Yeah.
not very data driven of you. So AI begins and ends and how good it can predict. It starts off with the data, and we're talking about, I guess the big buzzword right now is efficiencies, right, with the
Yeah.
government and private businesses. But really, in order for that to happen, you've got to lead with data. And it all starts with that data that resides in that warehouse's WMS ERP or stack of spreadsheets. That's where it all begins. So, to your point, yes, it's all about leveraging that data. Data is a new oil, right? That's a big, giant saying. But for businesses to truly get a competitive advantage, they've got to study the data that they have, going on many, many, many years, and use that to help them make decisions to give them a
Yeah.
competitive advantage.
Yeah. So back to your shirt.
Yeah.
Like I'm connected with a lot of people on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, and most of the people that I'm connected with are ops people in
Yeah.
warehouse and distribution center. And so I've probably seen like data driven this and data driven manager that like 1,000 times. So it's
Yeah.
definitely in people's profiles. So it's
Yep.
definitely out there in the industry. So now let me ask you this though. The big word out there in the ops world, and I've worked at a lot of different places, and sometimes places did it very well and other times they struggled, is SIOP or
Mhm.
SNOPs, sales, inventory, and operational planning. um, do you feel like Standard Insights has enough horsepower to really kind of help organizations take that from something that they say they do, right? Every company says that they do that, from that all the way to no, this is actually a core competency and a competitive advantage now that we have as an organization. Because I feel like everybody wants that golden ticket of having a very robust SIOP program,
Right.
but they might not necessarily know how to get there. It can Standard Insights fill in that gap?
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned psyops, right? And people think by leveraging the data and using AI, it's just a flip of the switch. And it is not. It's not that at all. It's a crawl, walk, run process. And I think I
Yeah,
saw in your profile, you played baseball, right? So
I did.
it's going for the singles, and it really starts. So typically, when we're going after targets, it's the SMB side of things. We're looking at businesses from 20 to 50, $60 million. So we're able to get to the CEO and COO. And even if we, close those deals, it has to involve everyone up and down the food chain, right? Yeah, the CEO,
Yeah,
COO can sign off on the project, on the software. We can get them sold. But at the end of the day, we've got to drive systematic and organizational change down to the
mhm,
frontline folks. Otherwise, if those folks aren't buying in, that company won't renew next year. So it's an
yeah.
educational process that starts from the top down.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a very insightful point. I mean, there's no magic bullet,
Yeah.
I don't think, with this stuff. I mean, you continuous improvement,
Yep.
as they say, is the flavor of the week for every company out there. And I think a little bit of expectation management
Hmm.
is important, and it's definitely a process. But at the same time, though, if a company doesn't necessarily have the intellectual capital with their current staff that they have, or they don't have it with their software or their systems, but they want to go there, it seems like that would be a perfect time for them to reach out to somebody like you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go, so when you're looking at AI companies, they're typically, one of two. They sell software or they do consulting. But if you go to our website, we actually do both, right? Because
I see.
one feeds off the other. So
Yeah.
if I'm meeting you, at a trade show, I'll say, hey Ben, Standard Insights, we help businesses leverage their first party data to build their economic moat. We can do that, improving their top and bottom line growth. So what does, what pain points do you solve? So, top line growth to your SIOP, we can improve sales, increase average order value, reduce customer churn, and then improving bottom line growth is improving inventory and labor efficiency. So
Yeah.
that's on one side. And the other side is we help businesses, we can build for them customized AI solutions along with consulting. So it's a 1-2 punch that enables us to help companies out, right? Because you just don't want to sell them a piece of software and say bye bye and
Yeah.
leave. Otherwise, so it's a constant, to your point, continuous education process that never
Yeah.
really ends.
Yeah. And I think too, on the ops side, I mean, you know, some like people out there sometimes don't necessarily connect the two. So
Yeah.
I'm an ops manager and a DC. I'm trying to run it as efficient and lean as possible. I've got all these metrics that I'm trying to hit. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how like a standard insights program or consulting that is working on the buyer side of the business helps me. But I'm like, are you kidding me? Like you know, like if you can slot your inventory better, you are maximizing your capacity, you can be much more, you can predict much better, right? So and
Yeah.
then you can afford to have less labor. You don't have to have all this extra labor to hedge for the fact that you can't predict what's going to be going on with your supply chain. So to really have the ability to tighten up on that side of the business using this incredible like machine learning has incredible downstream effects on ops inside the distribution center. I mean, obviously with the customer and revenue and
Right.
driving sales and all that, but just on the ops side, you know, it doesn't take too much of a connection there to see how that could benefit. It really would benefit because
And
I've been at operations that didn't have any type of thing. They just
yeah.
bought whatever. Sales was the organization that was driving what they bought. So they
Right.
just bought heavy and it just we scrapped all this inventory at the end of the year. And it's hard to kind of measure it all, but that is an inefficient operation,
Yeah.
right? That
So
is an inefficient operation.
you're talking about operational efficiency. So typically we're targeting the SMB. So one client we're working with, they're probably about a $20 million organization. They're
Mhm.
doing everything manual, right? So, but they approached us, they saw us at a trade show. But for us, it's about leveraging different types of partnerships. So we'll have, a hardware partner, right? They could be selling RFID or barcode
Mhm.
scanners. So they're taking in all that data, all that inventory data. You're talking about slotting, right? That's typically
Yeah.
performed by a WMS platform.
Yep.
And then now we're able to layer on our analytics on top of that. So whether it's a WMS or ERP, now we're helping those folks that operate the WMS and the ERP make smarter decisions. So case in point, so this client, they're a food and beverage distributor. They've been around 3-4 years. They've got 5,000 customers and they sell 25 SKUs. So now we're able to help them predict amongst those 5,000 customers what SKUs from the 25 they're likely to buy.
Yeah.
And if we know that, we can obviously improve their sales, increase their average order value, and reduce their customer churn. And then on the flip side, uh, not all 5,000 customers, stores that they distribute to are going to have the same buying patterns. And now we
Yep.
can predict how much that each of those clients will need for the next day, next week, next month. And that pretty much boils down in simple terms what predictive AI, predictive analytics can do for operations.
Yeah. And I mean, I myself, and I know others have as well, have tried their best at figuring this out,
Yeah.
right? You like look at historical data, you pull something in Excel, what were my fast runners, but it is very, very tedious to do.
Yep.
And I'm not I'm not so confident that the result or the answer that it spits out is worth a hill of beans.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
S-
So
You mentioned something tedious, but how
yeah,
that tedious term, how much time is that taken out of your day, right? When
a
you're
good
when you're
bit.
trying to, yeah, a good bit. Could be half
Yeah.
hour, could be an hour. And if
Yeah.
you multiply that, we're filming, on Wednesday, but you do that Thursday and Friday, and other
Yeah.
folks are doing it, and all that time adds up. Now we're talking about if we can synthesize that and get that data driven approach succinct, that's going to be savings on labor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean it's real.
Yeah.
It's not a stretch. I mean, just because it takes kind of more of a person to look a couple layers
Yeah.
deeper to see where that is, but it is absolutely real. I mean, it's
Yeah.
absolutely real. So for all the ops leaders out there, I mean, if you could just have your buyers just buy perfectly, which is, that's a pipe dream. But if you can
Yep.
get closer to that, I think they would all agree that, man, that would be a dream for me to run
Yeah.
operations with that, staffing and predictability and order volume. It just would be great to have that.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. If we can just, the sports analogies, base hits, football's a game of inches.
Yeah.
Those little positive movements matter, and the savings add up over time. So you don't have to,
Yeah.
get it perfect. Just get it this much perfect, and a little bit of 1% improvement each and every
Yep.
day. That's where that organization wins.
Yeah, I mean, 5% improvement this year, 10%
Yeah.
improvement the next year, right? That's how you go. So now let me ask you this question. So we've kind
Yeah.
of referenced AI a little bit, and obviously it's coming on fast in pop culture and in the news and social media and everywhere you turn. It's just AI, and everybody's got an opinion, like all these experts in AI suddenly appear everywhere. But can you talk about like how how does AI work in your area? Like, what are the nuts and bolts of AI if you peel back the curtain a little bit?
Yeah. So typically, and to your point, right? It's a big giant buzzword. I just came back from. I was at the Pack Expo show here in Atlanta for the last couple days, and AI, was everywhere. And it's been a blessing and a curse for Standard Insights. Blessing because it opens up a lot of conversations. Curse, it's sometimes because it's so buzzy, people expect too much, or people
Yeah.
expect this, magic pill to make all the business problems disappear, right? Just like if you're trying to lose weight, just going on a few workouts. I mean, it's going to take time. So how I allay fears when I'm talking to a potential client, it's like, hey, I get it. AI is a big buzzword, but here at Standard Insights, we try to approach things in a pragmatic and systematic way. Everyone knows ChatGPT. Everyone knows these AI robots, but Ben, really, it's about leveraging data that you already own, your customer data, your sales data, and inventory data. We can
Yeah.
run that through machine learning algorithms. So 1 + 1 = 2. So machine learning algorithms, it's all about math. Maybe we'll use pattern matching algorithms. Maybe we'll use time series algorithms to predict stuff in the future. It's like, Ben, we're not really looking to swing for the fences here. What we can do for you for a nominal fee is do a proof of concept where we take a subset of your data. You and I will work together on what you want to measure, what you want to predict, and then we give that to you in a SaaS form. You get a login and password, and then you can see for yourself what our analysis can do for that business. And then from there, they can decide do we go or no go on a potential engagement. So hopefully that allays the fear and hesitancy that a potential client may have.
Does the people at the company that are going to be using it, so your clients, do they need to be
Mhm.
do they need to be educated in AI a little bit about how it works and behind the scenes, or is that not necessary? They just need to know what buttons to press and it gives them the information that they're looking for.
They just know what buttons to press, right? They
Yeah.
don't. They don't need to be the chef or know the secret sauce, right? On a high level, we can explain it to them. And here's how we boil it down. And if someone's asking us about predictive analytics, predictive AI, it's like we boil it down with the 3 A's. The first A is giving us access to your data. So we'll pull that via spreadsheets, maybe an API. The second stage is analyze your data. So we're going to run that through a machine learning algorithms, determine what you want to measure, right? Independent versus dependent variables. And lastly is apply the data. So now we can apply that data so it's part of your daily life. So now we have those data-driven mechanisms in your system of truth. So that's typically going to be your ERP or your WMS. So we try to boil it down in simple terms that anyone, whether they're technical or non-technical, can understand.
Yeah. And so speaking of that data, is that's absolutely critical. I mean, you have to have that, I think. Like that is that's the price to play, right? Like that's the price of entry. So is that a challenging for you? Because I know a lot of different companies use lots of different ERPs, lots of different WMS. Like how big of a challenge is it for you to do that? And are you bolting on to the ERP and the WMS type thing? Are you integrating with that, or are you just kind of standalone outside of it?
So we're integrating with that, right? So we're integrating with the WMSs, we're integrating with the ERPs. In fact, we have a partnership with an, iPass agentic AI company that has APIs connected to a lot of the various WMSs and ERPs out there. So case in point, there were a lot of Acumatica vendors, a handful, and Dynamics vendors at the PAC Expo here the last couple of days. So would go up, would ask, are you helping your clients leverage their data with predictive analytics, predictive AI? Oftentimes they would say no. It's like, by the way, we already have API connectivity. So in case your clients have interest, we can help them. You mentioned something on the ERP side. On the ERP side, a packaging company client of ours 2.5 years ago approached us to build them a lightweight, modern ERP that didn't cost a lot. So now that's coming to market, and we're actually helping them sell it, right? So again, it all boils down to what's happening right now with government and businesses is efficiency, right? So if we can lower the cost, whether it's a ERP or WMS, yes, there's going to be some investment involved, but if you stick with it, just like with a workout plan, you're going to improve, not only in sales, drive more sales, but reduce costs. And biggest cost for most labor, or for most businesses, is labor, and then with inventory.
Yeah. Now I know you've worked with many companies, many organizations, but kind of what's the sweet spot for you? I mean, what's the size and scope that the operation needs to be, I guess, in order for them to really reap some benefits?
So that's a good question. So right now we're in the SMB range. So the 10 to $50 million range, obviously that can, be adjusted. Reason for that is we can not easily, but we can typically get to the CEO or COO, and you don't have to go through a lot of, different mazes, right? Or layers compared with a bigger company. Are we in discussions with some bigger companies? Yeah, just on a very, early level stage. But for us, and to move quickly, it'll be between the 10 and $50 million plus or minus 10% range with that, because you can typically get to the C levels, relatively easy. You can, make a bigger impact in a shorter amount of time versus going through the big giant mazes of those bigger companies.
Yeah. Now, I mean, we've already kind of hit on this a little bit, but if you
Mhm.
had to say where would be the biggest gains that an organization would get? Obviously, we talked about kind of the labor savings and the
Yeah.
efficiency and all that, but is that more of a selling feature for you, or is it more of like the predictability and you're going to sell more and increase revenue? So is it on the customer facing side or the internal side with
So funny
operations?
you say that. When we first started, we were always leading off with driving more sales, right?
Yeah.
Upsell, cross sell recommendations. You're seeing this with Amazon, their product recommendations, and Netflix with the movie recommendations. But to be honest, in the last 2, 3, 4 years, it's more been towards the cost saving side,
Yeah.
right? With labor and inventory, and part of that, when we first started, the interest rates were low, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe efficiency and profitability didn't really matter as much. Sure, anyone will want more sales, but the last handful of years, we've been more pushing for, hey, bottom line improvements. So labor and inventory. Because if you got
Yeah.
inventory, say, your inventory cost is 10 million bucks. And typically, what's the average inventory waste? Around 20%, right? So you're looking
Yeah.
at 2 million. Now, with predictive analytics, where we can predict, so if you're a company that you've got 1,000, 2,000, maybe even 10,000 SKUs, we can predict for each one of those what's likely to sell in the next day, week, or month. There's a potential savings. Now, I'm not going to say, hey, we're gonna swing and get it 100% right and save you 2 million bucks. But if we can save you $500,000 or so, that's a big enough savings and well worth the price of admission.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think maybe like 15 years ago, warehouses were just kind of thought of as a pure cost center. That's
yes,
just where the product goes, put box on shelf, take box on shelf. Now
yeah,
it's just like they're fulfillment centers and their competitive advantage and
yep,
their a profit center in a lot of places,
yes.
especially in 3PL world.
And you said something right. How can we turn this into a profit center?
Yeah.
Right? Versus maybe back, it's like, okay, this is just sunk costs. We just got to deal with it.
Yeah. Now, but I mean, is it all rosy though? I mean, do you ever face any type headwinds? I mean, do you ever have people that are hesitant to adopt your solution or they need coaxing? Like, what are the things that kind of gives people pause before they take that leap and work with a standard insights?
No, it's easy, man. No, it's not easy. It's every day. There's always a challenge or someone that's kind of hesitant. So we approach it in a couple ways. Education, and two, for us, it's just a pilot, right? I mean, it'd be nice to walk out of every meeting with a six-figure project. I mean, that'd be fine by me, but
That'd be great.
in re
Me too.
yeah, but in re in reality, it's just taking those small baby steps.
Yeah.
And once they sign off and giving us access to the data, and this is just spreadsheets, right? Just for the pilot, we just need spreadsheets. After that, we have a very, very good shot of winning, right? And
Yeah.
showing them what we can do. But it just starts off with the pilot and baby steps. Yeah, the pilot's going to cost something. We want to have that client or potential client have skin in the game. So that's how we
Mhm.
approach it. This is the education. But for us, I get this question all the time when I'm going to shows. Hey, what do you do? I was like, oh, I've got a predictive AI, predictive analytics company. We've been in business since 2018. Before AI was cool, right? I'd make a little joke
Yeah.
about that. And then two, as a Ben, we're also partners with one of the top master's analytics programs, in the world in UC Davis. So
Mm.
having those, letting people,
Yeah.
potential clients know about that
That's
kind of helps allay the fears, so to
yep.
speak. And then once we get talking and we show them, hey, Ben, here's a ERP that we developed that a packaging client hired us to build for them. So that all those things helps, allay fears. I mean, are we going to win everything? No, not at all. But those three things that we've been in it for a while, because you probably know this, you're going to shows. A lot of folks just started their AI company in the last, like today. Oh, we just started this today, or put .ai on their website. So we've been around for a while. Number one, we're partners with a top tier university. And lastly, we have social proof on the software projects that we're working on and have completed.
So let me ask you this. How do you see it progressing in the future? Like how do you see the future of AI in the supply chain?
I think as what we're battling now with inflation and high interest rates and high labor costs, it's going to continue to grow. Will it grow like rocket ship? I don't think so. Just you hear something on the news and everything's all crazy and catawampus. But I think over time, people are going to realize that they've got to do something. I mean, what do you see out there? Just talking to your cohorts.
Yeah, the same thing. I mean, I think it's just where everyone feels like the buyer side of the business is just a huge beast with all of the SKUs and all of the volume and all of that. And so a lot of organizations that I've came across have their own methods that they've developed to do that, their own systems. And sometimes it might be a little bit of like a little bit from this system, a little bit from this system. It's all kind of pieced together, mixed with this person's brain. They've been doing it for 30 years and they just know type thing, mixed with Excel, the whole thing. So, but I think there's an appetite to say, just like get rid of all that. Like our brains are good, but it's just the amount of data that we have to calculate is huge. So if there's some type of solution out there that can help us do it like this, like using the power of machine learning, that's where I think where people are doing it, because the more and more companies grow, the more complex they get, and the more difficult it is, and more challenging, and the more pressure they have to maximize EBITDA and efficiency and all those things. So I don't see it going away. I think once people feel like the problem is solved for them, they're gonna be on board.
So before I came on here, I was listening to one of your podcasts, and I think you made an example of a broken down Jeep. Right, because I had a Jeep. I had two Jeeps. I had a CJ7 in college, and more recently, I've got a TJ, Wrangler, 97. So I know that example where it breaks, but you know how the duct tape approach.
Yeah.
But the question is, when is that duct tape? When's that dam going to break? When are you going to be stranded with that Jeep in the middle of the highway and you can't go anywhere when you should have taken care of those problems beforehand? And you're stuck in the middle of the highway. It's dark, right? It's 2:00 in the morning, and your cell phone has run out, has died, and your old Jeep doesn't have that connection that modern cars do. So what do you do then? That's the
you just that you painted. That's like a horror movie. You painted a horror movie scene there.
Yeah, because those old Jeeps don't have the connections that the modern ones have today.
No,
and you worked and you're duct taping it, and you look in your glove, the center console, like, oh, ran a duct tape.
Well, how long does it take somebody to get comfortable with it? Like once you come in there, I mean, is there a learning curve there? Is it instantaneous?
Yeah, there's going to be a learning curve with anything, right? It's going to involve training, and because typically it's going to reside within that client's ERP or WMS, right? And then not even with that, they've got to, look at it. They've got to click on the button that says predictive analytics, but I talk about that example. We've got we're partnering up with an agentic AI company where soon enough you're going to get pinged. Hey, if you're a beer and wine distributor, hey, you need to order so many cases of red wine to meet next week's demand. So eventually that process will be automated, will you get pinged that you need to order XYZ product to meet the demand for next week or next month.
Yeah.
But it's always a learning process.
Yeah.
Right.
I can see that. I mean, do people ever come back to you and say, it's not working? Or are they always like, hey, it's working, but we need to modify it here? I mean, are you constantly care and feeding your customers there?
Yeah, so you're
you out?
always modification. So if you gave me a data set today, we've got, I guess, a standard set of algorithms, because you don't know what you don't know. But then as
Yeah.
we learn more and more about your business and the data and your customers' buying patterns, yes, there's going to be tweaks to those algorithms. So it's a never ending, you're always learning, you're always tweaking. So it's just not, oh, hey, we built an algorithm today, but we're also tweaking that algorithm in the future based on the behavior patterns that we get over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. And so where can people find out more about you? Like how do you get the word out, and what do you have on the horizon for 2025 and beyond?
So they can, Jerry Abiog, Abiog, they can find me on LinkedIn. They can go to our website, standardinsights.io, or they can shoot me an email, jerry@standardinsights.io. So, for the future, we talked about that ERP. So that is being launched as we speak. It's a lightweight, modern, slick-looking ERP with the predictive analytics, without the bloat of the big name ERPs. However, if you've got a big name ERP or WMS, chances are we'll have API connectivity to that, and we can take that data, we can pull that data, run it through our algorithms, and then present you a pilot. And after seeing the pilot, and this is something that you want to go forward with, we can work on integrating that within your system of truth. So, we want our clients to stay with us, and the last thing we need to do is make them log in to another solution, which over time they'll forget about it, because how many subscriptions on a personal basis people have, you forget about the password. So we want to make it as simple and as easy as possible for people to realize the benefit of machine learning and predictive analytics.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, man, thank you very much for coming on the show, Jerry. That was very insightful. I learned a lot, and I think there's definitely a market out there that is just waiting to blow up for you. So I wish you the best of success, man. And I hope I'll see you on the LinkedIn streets, I'm sure. And maybe I'll catch you at a couple of, you go to the shows, you go to trade shows. Which ones you go to?
So it was there were 3 trade shows back to back here in Atlanta. So it was the Package Expo, and then the NAFEM show a couple of weeks back, and then a poultry exhibit. I'm trying to look, IPPE a few weeks back before that. So yeah, just trying to make not all of them. Obviously, we've got a budget to watch, right? We've got to be efficient, but the food and beverage distribution ones try to make the rounds there.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you again, sir. And I know you're around the Georgia area. So if you ever want to link up in person, maybe we go have lunch or something one day.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll have a beer or something. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
You got it, Jerry. Thank you, sir. All right, guys, that concludes today's show. Thank you very much again for Jerry and Standard Insights for coming on. They're doing some very cool stuff there. And if you are in that space or considering that, definitely look them up. So, hey, as the Warehouse Underground goes, remember, please sign up for the community. Again, lots of cool stuff going on inside the message boards in there. Lots of great content. You're going to love it. But with that, I will see you next time at the next podcast. Thank you.